The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
USAA. This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to the A World of Difference podcast. I'm Lori Adams Brown, and this is a podcast for those who are different and want to make a difference. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to A World of Difference, where we celebrate humanity's unique differences and explore how we can all make a positive impact in the world together. I'm your host, Lori Adams Brown, and today we are diving into a topic that is absolutely critical for creating thriving, innovative, and productive workplaces. It's a topic called psychological safety. If this is a term that's new for you, buckle up. It's going to be an exciting ride. You're going to learn a lot, and we're going to come together around something that is absolutely critical right now in workplaces all around the globe. Now, I know the term might sound like one of those corporate buzzwords that gets thrown around without much action, but here's the truth. Psychological safety isn't just a nice to have, it's a must have for business success. And today, we're not just going to talk about what it is. We're going to break down the research, the business case, and the very real impact of ignoring it. Plus, we will get into a hot button issue called toxic rock stars, the high performers who deliver results but leave a trail of damaged people in their wake. And we're going to talk about how to spot them, why they're so dangerous, and how to hold them accountable without tanking performance. So grab your coffee, your matcha, or whatever gets you through the day, and we'll get into it. Hey friend, let's talk. If you've been feeling stuck, uninspired, or just plain over it in your career, this is your wake-up call. It's time to stop waiting for that right moment and start making moves, because no one is coming to rescue you. If you want to check out the Mastering the Career Pivot, my brand new masterclass is designed to help you take control of your career, pivot with confidence, and land a job you actually love. This isn't some fluffy, follow your dreams nonsense. This is real strategy to get unstuck and take action now, right now. Here's what you get. 1 hour of video training with me, breaking down the exact steps you need to take. 1 hour or maybe 2 hours, depending on your process, of self-paced exercises to map out your career pivot plan, a free career pivot guide to walk you through the process, a clear, actionable roadmap so you can stop second guessing and start making moves. And if you want to go even deeper, you can grab the Pivot Package, a powerful set of tools, including a detailed workbook and 3 must-have spreadsheets to track your job search, networking, and applications like a pro. And let me just say, if you're going out there expecting to just apply for a job, the first job, and get it, maybe you're one of those people and maybe you do. But if you're like most of the rest of us, you get a job based on people you know. And statistically speaking, that's true, as well as in my own lived experience and career journey. So networking is really a huge part of it, but a lot of us don't know how. And so a spreadsheet where you can track that, break it down, figure out what to talk about. I have some sample interview questions, or you can do informational interviews. There's so much there in the Pivot Package that is part of my own journey that helped me when I did a career pivot several years ago. So here's the deal. This course will save you hours of frustration, second guessing, and aimless scrolling on job boards. Not helpful. You don't have time to waste, and your future is waiting. So let's get after it. Go to loriadamsbrown.com/career pivot and sign up for Mastering the Career Pivot today, because your next chapter, it's not going to write itself. All right, let's start with the basics. Psychological safety is the belief that you can speak up, share ideas, ask questions, and even admit mistakes without the fear of humiliation, punishment, or retaliation. This term was popularized by Dr. Amy Edmondson of Harvard Business School, whose research found that teams with high psychological safety consistently outperform others. Now, why does this matter for businesses? Let me hit you with some numbers. Google's Project Aristotle, if you have not heard about it, I train on this globally at the company I work for based in Silicon Valley. They did this research. They analyzed 180 teams at Google, and they found that psychological safety was the number one predictor of a team's success. Not talent, not experience, but safety to speak up. A study by Gallup showed that teams with high psychological safety experience a 27% reduction in turnover and a 12% increase in productivity. And here's a big one. Companies that foster inclusive, psychologically safe environments are 1.7 times more likely to be innovation leaders in their industry. So let's get real. If your employees are walking on eggshells or staying silent in meetings, your business is leaving money, creativity, and potential on the table. Okay, now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the toxic rock stars. You've either known one, worked with one on a team, you've been one, you've ignored the fact that one existed, but they exist in a lot of different industries. I'm going to be honest and say here in Silicon Valley, we just have a few of them. Some of them are quite famous. These are the people who hit their numbers, they close the biggest deals, or lead the highest performing teams on paper. Now, I said on paper, I want you to remember this because behind the scenes, they belittle colleagues, they create fear, they engage in behavior that chips away at psychological safety. These are the people that, if you look at high performance and trust builders. And Simon Sinek, if you've not seen his video on this, it's quite powerful. Basically, if you draw a line of high performance and trust building, and you talk to organizations like the Navy SEALs, for example, if you have, of course, we all want the high performer, high trust builder, but occasionally you have to choose on one or the other. And the Navy SEALs even would say that they would prefer a high trust builder over a high performer. So even if the performer is a mediocre performer or even a low performer, but they're a high trust builder, they'd rather have that. Why? Because it affects the culture. So they may hit their numbers, but overall, when you're eroding psychological safety, and Google's Project Aristotle showed that that was the key to successful teams, it's not worth it. It's hurting your business. And you may have that guy, that dude that you started the company with, and you've known him for 12, 13, 14, 15, 20 years, however long, and women around him keep quitting and you can't figure out why. Well, maybe people aren't telling you why because they're afraid. Or maybe your relationship with that person who ends up being a workplace bully and even a toxic rock star is something you've been experiencing betrayal blindness around. Maybe you've only seen this side of them where they kiss up but they kick down. And maybe they don't kick down to everyone, but they choose particular targets to target. And so maybe it's not all women they work with, but it's just particular ones that they've chosen. And one-on-one, they bully them, they undermine them, they have a smear campaign against them. And maybe you've even turned against some of the women that have worked with this person as a peer or as a direct report for them. And suddenly you're realizing this is a toxic rock star. They are dangerous for your organization. And we're going to talk today about why both psychological safety needs to be carefully cultivated for your business to succeed, but also why holding toxic rock stars accountable is absolutely important before that cancer spreads throughout your organization. Okay, I get it. I really do. It's tempting to overlook the behavior of a toxic rock star because of their results. But here's the catch. Toxic rock stars are incredibly expensive for all organizations, not just business. Research from Harvard Business School found that a toxic, high-performing employee costs a company more than twice as much as a lower-performing but kind and respectful employee. I'm going to repeat that because I really want you to hear it. Research from Harvard Business School found that a toxic, high-performing employee costs a company more than two times as much than a lower performing but kind and respectful employee. Why? Because toxicity leads to high turnover, increased absenteeism, and a culture of silence. And let's be clear, silence costs companies millions of dollars. If you have employee engagement tanking and attrition on the rise, this is very expensive for your business. Okay, so how do you know if you have a toxic rock star in your midst? Here are some red flags I want you to look for. 1, performance over people. They hit their goals, but they leave a trail of disengaged, burnout team members behind. Pay close attention to this. Number 2, frequent complaints with HR or others that they've chosen to speak up with, if you have a speak up campaign where there's, regional global advisors that they can share, anything with, or maybe they've shared with somebody on their team. If there's frequent complaints or turnover about this person, if one team consistently has high turnover or multiple complaints about a single person, pay attention. This is not a coincidence. Number 3, fear-based leadership. When team members hesitate to speak up around this person or say things like, oh, that's just how they are, you have a problem. If women talking in the bathrooms or in the break rooms or in the hallways are having to teach each other how to be around a particular person because he's got some issues with women, maybe he's a bit rude to them, maybe he objectifies them, maybe he does cross the code of conduct, or he just borderline kind of makes women feel really icky. And this has happened as a pattern over time, and women are teaching each other how to handle that person, and you have not been brought in because people are seeing that you have this kind of bro relationship with him, maybe, or maybe you're a woman and you have just learned to deal with this person, and so you expect other people to just deal with it too. This is very dangerous for your organization. This is a cancer that spreads very quickly, and it's costing you money, and it's going to really, over time, be very, very bad for your business. So if you have power by fear going on, this is not psychologically safe. Innovation is likely tanking, and you are leaving a lot of creativity and voices being muted in the wake. And this is really, really, really bad for the future of work and your company and for your business as a whole. So now, if you're hearing this and you realize you might have a toxic rock star on your team, don't panic. You are absolutely not alone, but action actually really is non-negotiable. So we're going to take some practical steps together. Okay, let's get to some solutions, because you know me, I'm all about action. I want you to have the knowledge, and I want to leave you some calls to action. Number 1, model vulnerability as a leader. This one's a really hard one for me because I've had my vulnerability used against me by a toxic rock star years ago in a previous toxic work environment where that person was not dealt with. And so sometimes showing vulnerability feels as though you could be taken advantage of. But I want you to still try to find ways to lean into vulnerability and authenticity, because psychological safety really starts at the top. Modeling that is really important. If you want your team to feel safe speaking up, you need to go first. So please admit your mistakes. Don't go around acting like you know everything and you never do anything wrong, that you're perfect. This isn't human. Be a human leader. Admit when you're wrong. Admit when you make mistakes. Say, I don't know, when you actually don't know. Model growth mindset. Model humility. If your team sees you do it, they will follow. Number 2, establish clear behavioral expectations. High performance and respectful behavior are not mutually exclusive. Make it crystal clear how results are achieved. And that matters as much as the results themselves. So I want you to align promotions, raises, and rewards with both the performance and the collaboration. Measure how much people are building trust in your organization. Are they showing up in small moments for their team? How do their direct reports feel about them? Not just how do their peers feel around them and how do their bosses feel around them, but how do all of their direct reports, not just a few, how do they perceive this person in terms of the expectations? And when the performance and respectful behavior are crystal clear and are expected, then results really do, we see the productivity go up, we see innovation go up. So make it crystal clear how results are achieved and also the results themselves, because sometimes we have toxic rock stars that have a tendency to steal others' work, especially women's work, and they will take credit for that productivity when in fact they didn't do all the work themselves, and it should be more of a shared expectation. And yet some of those women on their team may be hesitant to speak up because of the power by fear dynamics going on. So that's why it's important to celebrate the results, but also how it happened, and that we align promotions, raises, and rewards accordingly. Number 3. So there's a lot of controversy around implementing a 360-degree feedback. But in these cases, it's really sort of important to have a version of that going on. So I would encourage you to find a good version of to implement with a 360-degree feedback, because toxic rock stars often manage up beautifully, and even with their peers, but they leave destruction behind them. So use anonymous feedback from peers and direct reports to get a fuller picture of someone's leadership impact. And like I said, it won't be all of their direct reports. Usually they will pick and choose. So it's just that much more confusing and that much harder to sort of nail the pattern. That's why it's important to have all of their peers and their direct reports be able to speak anonymously without any fear of retaliation for speaking up. The fourth thing I would ask you to do and to consider is address toxic behavior immediately. This is not something you want to wait on. When you see it, name it, have direct and documented conversations, and if the behavior doesn't change, you're going to have to let that person go. No matter how great their numbers are, no matter how loyal you are to them and they are to you, and how much you've worked together over the years, and you have these stories of the origins of the company that in the startup days, and you have some trauma bonds together from those late nights and long weekends. No matter how much you care about this person and have bonded together, you may have to let them go if the behavior doesn't change, because no matter how great their numbers are, remember, the cost of keeping them is so much higher than the cost of losing them. Fifth, I want you to think about training managers on psychological safety. I've done a lot of training in the company where I currently work and have been for the last couple of years on training our managers globally on how to cultivate psychological safety. We've seen some great results from it. Many managers simply haven't been taught how to create safe environments, and they may have had, their own bosses in the past and managers be very authoritarian, even barking orders at people. I hear a lot of people talk about the 80s and 90s, how often that happened, but leadership has changed. I'm not going to say it is changing. It already has changed. And if you are not up to date on that type of leadership that's happening globally in all of our corporate environments across countries and across the world, you're going to be left behind when it comes to the future of work. You really need to invest in training that helps your managers understand the importance of psychological safety and how they can foster and cultivate that daily. This is part of helping set the culture, and it's only as strong as how our managers implement it. Look, though, beyond the data, this is honestly it's about human beings. When people don't feel safe at work, it affects their lives, their entire lives. I've had conversations with people who second guess themselves at home because their voice was constantly dismissed at work. And guess what? Years ago, when I was in a toxic work environment with a toxic boss, I did the same thing. Sundays before having work on Monday was so difficult. I lived for the weekend, but I couldn't even get it out of my head over the weekend. Even after I was out of that toxic work environment, I had a hard time even speaking up with my own voice because I always second guessed how I spoke because of the emotional and psychological abuse and extreme tone policing of this toxic boss and how he never listened to understand the facts, feelings, and values being communicated. So, and there was a lot of name calling, belittling, intimidation, a lot of coercive control. And so when you have somebody like that, they don't just cut that off and it doesn't affect their everyday lives. It affects how they are with their partner at home, their spouse. It affects how they are as a daughter, as a friend, as a son-in-law, as a dad, as an uncle, as a nephew. It affects all their relationships. And so this is why it's crucial for us as human beings to address this issue, because we are allowing something to go on that affects people's lives, both in and outside of work. I've seen the heartbreak of teams who worked their hearts out, really giving 110% only to be sidelined by somebody who weaponized their success. I've seen women have their hard work, where they've burned the candle at both ends, stolen by a male executive who took that work for himself and took credit for it and got promoted to the highest levels. When we spend a third of our lives at work, let's make sure that time isn't spent in fear, but in environments where people feel valued and heard and motivated to do their best work. So here's my challenge to you. What's one thing you can do today to make your workplace safer for the people in your workplace to speak up? Maybe it's asking your team for some really honest feedback and being willing to receive that feedback however it comes to you, emotionally regulating yourself, showing up as a non-anxious presence so you can hear some things that might be really hard to hear. Maybe about your buddy that goes back with you to the trauma bonding days of your startup. Maybe it's just hearing that you have said something that made somebody feel unsafe to speak up. So emotionally regulate yourself, show up as a non-anxious presence, and be willing to receive that honest feedback as a leader. Maybe your takeaway and one thing you can do today to make your workplace safer is holding a high performer accountable for behavior that doesn't align with your values. If somebody is living outside of the values and leading that way in your organization, that is even one slight shift in direction, is like when you turn the driving wheel of a boat just slightly to the east and you end up, after miles of driving this boat, in a very, very different location. So whatever it is, I want you to take action today. Your team, your business, and your humanity will thank you for it. And I want you to also remember that you have the power to make a difference. You have the power to speak up. You have the power to use your position. You have the power to support others who may be struggling. And you have the power to even create in your organization a speak up campaign, maybe to come up with a global head of ethics advisors and come up with regional advisors around the world where people can feel safe to speak up to those individuals, even if they don't feel safe to speak up to HR or maybe their own boss or one of their own peers. Whether you're leading a company, a team, or just simply leading yourself, when we create safer spaces for people to show up fully, we really unlock the potential we never knew existed. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If this episode resonated with you, I would ask that you would share it with somebody who needs it. Maybe there's a colleague at work, maybe somebody in your old previous work environment where you worked. Maybe you worked at Tesla before. We all know here in Silicon Valley that is an environment that has had quite a bit of people leaving for these reasons. Maybe you know somebody who just needs support because they've walked through months, weeks, years of working for a toxic rock star and they've not felt psychologically safe. And this is a podcast you can send to just say, hey, I see you and you matter and your healing matters and you deserve all the healing. Or maybe it's because in your workplace, you want to have a conversation around psychological safety. You want to get managers trained. You want to learn as a CEO of your company, as a COO, as the head of HR, you may be a CHRO, any of these things leading in your organization, and you want to send this podcast to somebody because you want to start having that conversation together. These podcasts exist for you to have conversations, sometimes difficult conversations, and to spur those conversations on. So they're just a beginning. And this community has been created around difference makers, change makers, disruptors, people who are having those conversations to help take us deeper as authentic leaders leading globally around the world in various industries and making a difference in our world. It starts with us. It starts with our own calls to action, and leadership is a collective process. So consider sharing this podcast with somebody that you want to bring in as that collective process of leadership with you. And I would love if you would leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. It really does make a huge difference in how people find us. We want to bring more authentic leaders into this community of difference makers. And every time you rate us and review us, more people find us. That's how those algorithms work here in Silicon Valley. So please leave us a review wherever you listen. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss more conversations about how to make a difference at work, at home, and in the world. Until next time, stay curious, stay courageous, keep making a difference. Know that you matter. I love you so much for showing up today and for being your authentic self. Keep being who you are. Keep speaking up. Keep doing the things that you're doing to make the world a better place. And let me know about how these calls to actions are working out for you. I always love to hear from you. Find me on LinkedIn, find me on Substack, find me on Blue Sky. Love to have a conversation with you about how you're implementing your calls to action wherever you are in the world. I know that there's a lot happening right now in business. Business is changing quite a bit right now. There's all kinds of conversations going on around geopolitical events and stock markets, and there's a lot of reasons to be stressed. But I want you to remember that showing up as who you are every day matters. The world needs you. They need your voice. Your voice makes a difference. And bringing our different perspectives around the table to make a difference together is so exciting for me. I'm glad you're here, and I will see you and talk to you and with you in the next episode. Before we go, I just want to take a moment to thank you. Yes, you. The fact that you're here, tuning in, leaning into these conversations, and doing the hard and beautiful work of making a difference in this world, it means everything to me. In this episode, if it spoke to you, if it brought you healing, hope, or even just a new perspective, I'd love for you to help us spread the word. Subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and share this episode with someone you think might need to hear it. Your support helps this community grow and also helps us to keep having these important conversations. You are such a vital part of this journey. And every time you listen, every time you share, you remind me of why we do this, because you are out there making a difference in your own beautiful, messy, and imperfect way. And that matters more than you know. So thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up. And thank you for making the world a little brighter, a little kinder, and a little more whole. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep making a difference. You are loved. Life is hard. Career pivots, relationships, stress, big decisions. It's a lot. And let's be real. Sometimes your best friend or your journal just isn't enough. That's where BetterHelp comes in. BetterHelp is online therapy that actually works for your life. No awkward waiting rooms, no commute, just licensed professional support from the comfort of your own home on your schedule. Whether you need help processing a big change, setting boundaries, or just getting unstuck, you'll be matched with a therapist that fits your needs. Here's the best part. As a listener of A World of Difference, you get 10% off your first month. Just head over to www.betterhelp.com/difference. That's www.betterhelp.com/difference to get started today. Look, your mental health is everything. You deserve support. You deserve all the healing. You deserve to feel better. So don't wait. Go to www.betterhelp.com/difference and take that first step for your healing today.